Part 22. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 211. Fen Wanyu was about to leave when two figures suddenly appeared in front of her and said coldly, "Please stay." Fu Kang's eyes swept across Fen Wanyu's face like a sword, squatted down, put his arm around Chu Qinghuang's waist, and looked at her anxiously. "Master." "Your Highness." The young princess of the wrong palace stood up and ran to Chu Qinghuang, squatted down and looked at her pale face and the dark blue blood at the corners of her mouth, her eyes full of panic. "Are you okay?" Chu Qinghuang closed her eyes slightly, half leaning on Fu Kang's arms with some fatigue, and didn't speak. Fen Wanyu's face was pale, she clenched her hands, and silently looked at the two people in front of her. Almost. She was just a little bit away from leaving. Why? Why did Chu Qinghuang's poison take effect so quickly? Didn't Ade say that the poisoning took half an hour to take effect? "Your Highness." Hong Yu's face turned pale. "Your Highness, don't scare me." "Your Highness." The young princess of the wrong palace spoke to comfort him. "Don't worry, my lord, the doctor will be here soon. I tell you, if anything happens to your Highness, all of you will be buried with him." "All of you will be buried with him." Hong Yu was furious and roared, "Come here. Go to the palace and report to the emperor immediately, and say that the eldest princess was poisoned while enjoying the flowers in the Xian palace. The situation is critical and her life is at stake." The Xian princess's face suddenly changed. "No. Why not?" Hong Yu glared at her. "Didn't the princess come here at your invitation?" "The princess was poisoned after drinking the tea of the Xian palace." "Is it related to your Xian palace?" "You say no, so no. If something happens to the eldest princess, can you bear the responsibility?" The Xian princess was flustered and a little confused for a while. She had just ordered someone to summon the imperial physician in a hurry, which was destined to alarm the emperor. Whether she reported it or not, the emperor would know it later. However, there was a big difference between knowing it earlier and knowing it later. If the imperial physician successfully detoxified the princess, even if the emperor was furious after knowing it, his anger would be limited. But if the princess was really in danger? "The prince is here. Get out of the way." A chaotic sound of footsteps came from outside the hall. The King Xian, who received the news, hurried over with his guards and an old man. "All the strangers, get out of the way. Let Dr. Chen take a look at the seventh sister." The frightened ladies automatically stood in the corner to make enough space. The old man, who was about 60 years old, walked into the flower hall, squatted in front of the table, and without caring about etiquette and rules, just said, "I offend the princess," and hurriedly took Chu Qinghuang's wrist and began to feel her pulse. While feeling the pulse, his eyes fell on Chu Qinghuang's face. Looking at Chu Qinghuang's pale face with black hair, his expression was extremely solemn. The flower hall was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, and the atmosphere was extremely depressing and uneasy. The guards of Prince Xian's mansion had surrounded the flower hall, and the ladies were pale, and the fear in their eyes was clearly visible. Chu Tianquo's expression was as cold as ice, and his eyes slowly swept across the faces of the ladies in front of him one by one, and his voice was cold. "No matter who poisoned Her Highness the Princess today, I will definitely find out the truth. Before the matter is found out, I'm sorry to bother you to wait here." Fu Kang silently embraced Chu Qinghuang. Although he knew that his master was fine, his expression was still gloomy and ugly when he saw Chu Qinghuang's abnormal face. The poison of the princess was caused by the herb Naphtalium, which kills the throat immediately and is extremely toxic. The old man frowned. Fortunately, the detoxification pills have removed most of the toxicity in time, so her life is safe, but her body is inevitably damaged. She needs to take a few pills to remove the remaining poison, and then rest in bed and recuperate for a period of time. When the old doctor said this, the couple of King Xian suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and the noble ladies present seemed to have saved their lives from the gates of hell. They all felt relieved, but they were still frightened. It's good that the princess is fine. As long as her life is not in danger, the rest can be investigated slowly. After finding out who it is, whether it is confiscated, exterminated, beheaded, or executed by slow slicing, or torn apart by 5 horses, it is all her own fault. But if something happens to the princess, I'm afraid that everyone present today will not be able to escape the consequences of the emperor's thundering anger. Dr. Chen is a famous old doctor in the imperial city. Although he has not been in the imperial hospital, his medical skills are also recognized as superb. When he said that there was no problem at this time, everyone present naturally put their minds at ease. Control all the maids who are responsible for making tea today, and all the cooks who have been involved in boiling water in the kitchen. No one is allowed to leave, King Xian ordered coldly. I will interrogate them one by one. Your Majesty, it's not good. It's not good. A middle-aged nanny ran over. A Xiang, who was in charge of making tea, committed suicide by jumping into the well. King Xian's face sank. Your Highness, Hong Yu shouted in surprise, are you awake? Chu Qinghuang slowly opened her eyes and was about to speak. She opened her mouth and suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood. Puff. Your Highness. Master Fu Kang's voice was tense, and his face looked paler than Chu Qinghuang's. Let's go back first. Don't worry, this is the effect of the detoxification pill. Her Highness will be fine after she spits out the poisonous blood accumulated in her lungs. Dr. Chen spoke in time, and suddenly thought of something. By the way, who gave Her Highness the detoxification pill just now? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 212. The detoxification pill was given by Hong Yu. However, when the doctor asked, Hong Yu suddenly became wary. What's wrong? There is only one antidote pill. Give it to the eldest princess and it will be gone. You must not ask me for it. I don't have it. Dr. Chen was stunned for a moment and then explained, Young master, I misunderstood. How could I speak freely about such a rare and expensive thing? What I want to ask is that the detoxification pill was made by yourself. You are the one who saved Her Royal Highness the eldest princess today. Meritorious minister, report it to the emperor, and the emperor will issue a decree to reward you. I don't know where the sentence struck Chu Tianqiu. His expression suddenly changed, and he turned to look at Hong Yu, his eyes cold and gloomy. Do you carry an antidote pill with you? What? Hong Yu suddenly became unhappy after hearing his questioning tone, and stood up and said, What's wrong with me bringing the detoxification pill? My parents and princesses have a high position and hate evil. Holding great power will inevitably offend others. I don't know why. I was tricked by a villain at that time, so I can't carry the detoxifying pill with me. Chu Tianqiu's face darkened. You are so presumptuous. You're so presumptuous, Hong Yu counterattacked coldly. His Royal Highness was poisoned in Prince Qian's mansion. Prince Qian was not afraid of implicating himself, so he wanted to catch the thief? Or in other words, the poison was His Majesty Qian's palace. Yes, you want to put our Highness to death. Chu Tianqiu's face turned pale, and he was about to say something when Princess Qian suddenly said, My lord, the top priority is to ensure that the eldest princess is safe and sound, then control the situation, and immediately send someone into the palace to report the matter to my father. The emperor will decide. Chu Tianqiu suddenly calmed down, thinking of his mother's repeated instructions not to confront Chu Qinghuang. Even if she wanted to bully others, she must endure it and not be angered. Besides, he still couldn't get rid of Chu Qinghuang's poisoning in Prince Qian's mansion for the time being, and it would be bad for him if it made a big fuss. The princess is right. He calmed down, and his tone was cold and murderous. No matter who poisoned you, you must report it to your father first. At worst, let Dali Temple come to investigate. I have done nothing wrong, so who will? Don't be afraid of checking. Fukang picked up Chu Qinghuang, stood up and said, I will take His Highness back first. No, Chu Tianqiu flatly refused, I will send someone to escort Kime back, and you two will stay. Does King Xian suspect that we poisoned the princess? Hong Yu frowned, is there something wrong with your brain? Chu Tianqiu's expression changed, and he couldn't help but get angry again. Your Majesty, Princess Xian came over and comforted her softly, they are all members of Seventh Sister, so there should be no suspicion. Chu Tianqiu stared at her without saying a word for a moment, then slowly turned to look at Hong Yu, secretly remembering this ignorant young man, go back and take good care of Kime, and ask the imperial doctor to go directly to the eldest princess later. If you need anything else, please let me know at any time. Fukang hugged Chu Qinghuang and walked out. Hong Yu took a step behind and said calmly, before it gets dark tonight, I hope King Xian can give us an explanation. If we can't find out who the poisoner is, then we will think that the murderer is its King Xian. After leaving these words, Hong Yu gave him a cold look and walked away. Chu Tianqiu could hardly believe that a little male favorite dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. Your Majesty, the princess spoke in time to comfort her and whispered, he is not an ordinary person who serves others with sex. Your Majesty, please don't embarrass him for the time being. King Xian was slightly surprised, how do you say that? His Qing Kung is very powerful. Princess Xian frowned, the origin must be unusual. Chu Tianqiu turned his head and stared in the direction Hong Yu left. The 16 or 17-year-old boy was not only beautiful, but also possessed of profound martial arts. What is his background? Chu Tianqiu thought of the recent rumors that the male favorite of the eldest princess's palace often visited the military camp, and Fukang's order just now to quickly order people to guard the flower hall, and for a moment he felt that the crouching tigers, hidden dragons in Chu Qinghuang's backyard were unfathomable. He was silent for a moment, turned to look at his wife, and said in a deep voice, what's going on? How could a good person be poisoned? Didn't I tell you that all the tea and fruits presented must be handled by reliable people? Let too many people handle it. I have explained it carefully, but I didn't expect that there were still some omissions. Princess Xian blamed herself. Don't worry, Your Majesty, if you don't want others to know, you have to do it yourself. It is impossible for someone who secretly poisoned someone without leaving any traces. Fortunately, Seventh Sister is fine now, otherwise we wouldn't be able to explain to our father. King Xian was still frightened. I kindly invited Seventh Sister to be a guest, but it almost caused a catastrophe. Dangers are really everywhere, and it is difficult to guard against. Princess Xian did not speak, but turned to look at the noble ladies standing in the corner of the flower hall, and said lightly, the poisoning of Her Royal Highness the Princess is not a trivial matter. If my father pursues it, no one present today will be able to escape the involvement, so for the time being, I can only feel aggrieved. Everyone, please stay here until we find out the truth, and you will leave here intact. The noble ladies who came today all come from powerful families. They are well informed and thoughtful. They know how to take the overall situation into consideration better than ordinary people. Moreover, if you want to clear away the suspicion, it is wise to cooperate with the investigation now. So all the girls nodded, listened to the princess's arrangements. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 213. All the guards of Prince Xian's mansion were dispatched, and even the gate was heavily guarded. Fu Kang carried Chu Qinghuang into the carriage, and the guards waiting outside immediately escorted the eldest princess back to her home. Hong Yu was sitting in the spacious carriage, looking at the blood on the corner of Chu Qinghuang's mouth, frowning and said, even if you want to use the trick, you should let me do it. Why does your highness have to suffer this crime personally? Chu Qinghuang said calmly, can your weight be comparable to that of me? Hong Yu choked for a moment, okay, what his highness said is right. The fact that the eldest princess was poisoned in Prince Xian's mansion and the eldest princess's male favorite was poisoned in Prince Xian's mansion would definitely bring different levels of anger to the emperor's heirs. But I think it doesn't matter whether the emperor is angry or not. Anyway, his highness has always acted without scruples. As long as it is found out that the legitimate daughter of the Feng family poisoned me, his highness will also have an excuse to be angry and raid the Feng family. Hong Yu scratched his head. Your highness has been extremely angry for Wen Zhan before. You can also be extremely angry for me this time. After saying that, he sighed with some regret, I still want to be pampered by his highness once more. Fu Kang looked at him expressionlessly. What do you think I'm doing? Hong Yu frowned, you are only allowed to hold his highness, but you are not allowed to compete for his favor. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the carriage suddenly became subtle. Chu Qinghuang was just carried out of the front yard by Fu Kang from the lakeside flower hall of Prince Xian's mansion, and was not put down until he got on the carriage outside the gate. There was no cover in the eyes of everyone. If this happened to an ordinary woman, would there be any other option besides committing herself to her? Although Her Royal Highness the eldest princess has long regarded honor as nothing, and being held in a hug under special circumstances is not a big deal, but it was originally a trivial matter, but after Kureyu said it outright, she felt something was obviously different. Fu Kang pursed his lips and remained silent, looking at his hands quietly, unable to help but miss the feeling just now. Chu Qinghuang glanced at him casually and said calmly, has Eng gone to the palace to report the news? Yes. Fu Kang came back to his senses and nodded respectfully, the emperor should have received the news by now. Chu Qinghuang hummed and said nothing more. As the carriage arrived at the princess's residence, Chu Qinghuang ordered, Hong Yu gets out of the car first, use your housekeeping skills, and shout as loudly as possible. Hong Yu received the order and agreed happily, Your Highness, don't worry. Fu Kang. Chu Qinghuang closed his eyes slightly, carry me into the house. Yes. In Yuqian Palace, the emperor was furious after receiving the news, what did you say? Qinghuang was poisoned. Reporting to the emperor, the eldest princess has indeed been poisoned. The imperial doctor has left the palace and gone straight to the eldest princess's mansion. Chen Hai lowered his eyebrows and said, King Xian and the princess left all the noble ladies who went to enjoy the flowers today at the palace. We must get to the bottom of this matter. How audacious, the emperor's face turned livid, check. You must check for me. Check one by one. Chu Xuanyi. I'm here. Pass it to the minister of Dali Temple. According to the order. What's King Huang's situation now? The emperor looked at the Anj shadow guard kneeling on the ground and asked coldly, is there any danger? The doctor has diagnosed that the poison poisoned by the eldest princess is heartbroken grass that seals the throat when it sees blood. Fortunately, the male favorite of your highness brought an antidote pill with him, so that the life of the eldest princess was saved. Broken gut grass. It's so vicious that his heart can be killed. The emperor angrily ordered, publish my decree and mobilize the forbidden troops in the imperial city to surround Prince Xian's mansion. Everyone must be watched by me and not a fly will fly out. I will investigate and interrogate one by one. The guards took the order and left. You are simply rebelling against them. The emperor sat down, his face as gloomy as water, and his voice was so cold that it seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Even the eldest princess dared to murder, what else could they not dare to do? It's so cowardly. Baotian. Seeking death. Your Majesty, calm down and please take care of the dragon's body. Chen Hai walked over with lowered eyebrows and reached out to pat the emperor's heart. Fortunately, Her Royal Highness the princess has good luck, so there should be nothing serious. The emperor's eyebrows were cold and he was silent for a long time before he said, Qing Huang has returned to the eldest princess's mansion. Chen Haidao, I heard that he has gone back. The people around His Highness believe that Prince Qian's mansion is not safe and are determined to escort His Highness back to the mansion. However, His Highness's poisoning is a big deal. After returning to the princess's mansion, chaos immediately broke out in the mansion. After a while, the doctors were all called to Dongshang Pavilion. The emperor was silent for a moment and frowned. Just now the secret guard said it was because one of King Huang's servants brought an antidote pill with him. Chen Hai nodded, that's what he said. Which male favorite? The emperor took a deep breath, I will reward him heavily. Chen Hai lowered his eyebrows and said, I don't know which one it is yet. Forget it. The emperor stood up and suppressed the anger that had not yet been vented. I will go to the eldest princess's mansion in person to see it. Later, I will ask the minister of Dali Temple to go directly to the eldest princess's mansion to see me. Without seeing Qing Huangwei with his own eyes, he felt uneasy. Yes, Chen Hai said hurriedly, I will order someone to show off. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 214. The emperor arrived at the eldest princess's palace in a mighty manner, and got off the dragon chariot. The emperor ignored the guards who were kneeling on both sides to worship, and ordered people to lead the way directly to the east pavilion of the eldest princess's palace. As soon as I stepped into the courtyard, I heard a heartbreaking voice of sorrow coming from the dormitory, Your Highness, you must not let anything happen to you. If you have something wrong with you, how can I live? The emperor paused. Then another nice but lonely voice sounded, If something happens to your highness, I will never live alone. Your highness, please don't leave me. The young man cried loudly, I can't live without your highness. I swear that I will eat fast and chant Buddha's name from now on, and pray for your highness every day. I just ask your highness not to leave me, Wu. A calm voice sounded, If his highness leaves, I would rather be buried. Kinja's voice was gentle and affectionate, Me too. I want to avenge his highness, and then I will follow his highness after I have done so. The emperor's expression changed slightly. Didn't he say that Qing Huang was fine? Why do all of them even think of being buried? The emperor has arrived. A high-pitched announcement sounded, and the sounds of mourning and crying in the dormitory suddenly stopped, as if their throats were pinched by someone, followed immediately by the sound of worshipping. See the emperor, long live the emperor! His Majesty the Emperor hurriedly walked into the palace gate and saw a huge group of people squeezing the originally spacious dormitory. He frowned subconsciously and glanced lightly. He first saw a dozen imperial doctors kneeling in the outer hall. The maid of the princess's palace kneeling beside her, and several young men surrounding the bed in the inner hall. Well, the chief of Taiyuan Hospital is taking Chu Qinghuang's pulse. The emperor stood still for a moment, walked through a passage vacated by the imperial doctor, and saw Chu Qinghuang lying half on the bed, with a pale and haggard face, and a bit of black blood still remaining at the corner of his mouth. Imperial physician, the emperor asked urgently, how is the eldest princess doing? The head of the Taiyuan hospital retracted his hand, turned around and knelt down, reporting to the emperor. Cai Chen and others took turns to take the pulse of the eldest princess. It is temporarily confirmed that the princess is out of danger, but there are still some residual poisons in the body that need to be removed. I will prescribe some medicine for the princess to take. Just take a good rest and it should be fine. The emperor finally breathed a sigh of relief, and his eyes fell on Chu Qinghuang's pale face. Qing Huang, how do you feel? Chu Qinghuang's voice was indifferent. My son is fine, father, don't worry. I will definitely let people investigate this matter. If the murderer is found, he will not be lenient, the emperor said in a cold tone. You dare to poison the eldest princess in broad daylight. You are so audacious that you don't know whether to live or die. Your Majesty, calm down. Chen Hai quickly acted as a comforter. The eldest princess has her own destiny, she will be safe and healthy, and she will never let those cunning villains succeed. The emperor nodded. You must have a good rest these 2 days and put other things aside for now. The murderer who poisoned you will send someone to investigate. Chu Qinghuang hummed and said nothing more. Chen Hai reminded in a low voice, didn't the emperor just say that he wanted to reward that young master? Oh yes. The emperor remembered and turned around to look, who accompanied the eldest princess to Prince Xian's mansion just now, and also carried the antidote pill with him. The young man in red clothes with red eyes raised his hand weakly, it's me. The emperor's eyes fell on the young man's face, and he saw that the young man was delicate and beautiful, with very white skin. However, his eyes were red and swollen from crying, and he looked a little pitiful. Hearing his voice, the emperor suddenly remembered that it was him who had just cried, I can't live without your highness. I vow to eat fast and pray for his highness from now on, and pray for his highness every day. I just ask his highness not to leave me, woo woo woo. That boy. May I have your name? Kurha. Why do you carry the antidote pill with you? That. Hong Yu scratched his head out of habit. Master Chu spent a lot of time making the antidote pill. There is only one pill. I was worried that my highness would make many enemies and he would have to carry it with him every time he went out. Unexpectedly, it really comes in handy. Mr. Chu, the emperor frowned, but did not pursue his unconventional self-claim, who is Mr. Chu? Hong Yu reached out and pointed to Chu Ling Chuan aside, he. The emperor then looked at Chu Ling Chuan again, whose family do you belong to? Chu Ling Chuan was kneeling facing the bed. It was clearly the princess and not the emperor who was kneeling. Back to the emperor, I am the servant of the eldest princess. The emperor couldn't help but fall into memories again. Qing Huang seemed to have mentioned it before. But his surname is Chu. What a special last name. The emperor's eyes darkened. Do you know medical skills? The villain's medical skills are not very good, but he usually likes to read some books on poison preparation and detoxification. Chu Ling Chuan answered neither condescendingly nor overbearingly, Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, is quite busy these days. The people in the backyard often don't see your highness. Feeling bored, the villain tried to find some medicinal materials and tried to make some detoxification pills himself, but there were many failures and few successes. This one was planned to be given to His Highness the Princess on her birthday. I thought it would come in handy today. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 215. The emperor didn't know whether he believed his explanation, and his eyes quickly returned to Hong Yu's face. In that case, both of you have contributed to saving the eldest princess, so let's reward her together. Hong Yu sobbed and looked at Chu Qinghuang pitifully, I don't want rewards, I just hope that His Highness is safe. The emperor's expression paused slightly, and then he sighed softly. In the past, he had always thought that these men in King Huang's backyard were all male servants. As long as they could make Qing Huang happy, it didn't matter whether he was sincere or not. He didn't expect that they were so affectionate and loyal to Qing Huang. It was rare. Sure enough, true love can only be seen in times of adversity. But the emperor turned to look at the crowded group of people in the palace. The atmosphere was depressing and gloomy, as if there was some kind of funeral. If it is determined that the eldest princess is fine, the imperial physician can go back first, he said. The imperial physician Lu will stay and prescribe some medicine for the eldest princess to remove the toxins in her body. By the way, she will also prescribe some tonics for Qing Huang to replenish her body. I obey the decree. Others can do whatever they need to do. They don't have to stay here, the emperor ordered in a deep voice. The eldest princess needs to rest quietly. He was embarrassed to say it directly, but a 7-foot man was crying like a woman. What did he say? However, these people are King Huang's backyard, so they should be treated as saving face for Qing Huang. When she gets better, she will be reminded to manage the backyard. Even if they are all servants, they should still have a bit of masculinity, right? If I don't go back, I will accompany Her Highness the Princess Hongyu took a step forward, knelt in front of the bed and held Chu Qinghuang's hand. Your Highness, please don't drive me away, okay? Chu Qinghuang's mouth twitched and she looked at him expressionlessly without saying a word. I'm not leaving either. Qi Ling, who was dressed in white robe, said in a calm but firm tone, I want to accompany His Highness. Wen Zhan followed suit, I'm not leaving either. Zhong Jin and Chu Ling Chuan didn't speak directly, but their attitude seemed very determined. The emperor frowned. This was the first time someone dared to openly resist the decree, and resisted it so confidently. They said no in front of him. The emperor looked at Qing Huang, wanting her to take good care of these unruly guys, but seeing Chu Qinghuang's pale face, all the words he wanted to say were suppressed before they reached his throat. Never mind. These unscrupulous male favorites were probably spoiled by Qing Huang, and they had no rules at all. However, because of their deep love for Qing Huang, he, the emperor, was able to support the boat, so he did not have the same experience as them for the time being. Besides, Qing Huang lost his life to two male favorites today. The emperor quickly comforted himself and turned to look at Qing Huang, is there anything else you want to say? Qing Huang shook his head. About the poisoning, don't you think there's anything wrong? Qing Huang thought for a while and said calmly, I didn't eat the fruit, but I let Hongyu and Fukang eat it, and they were not poisoned. I only drank tea, so the poison should be in the tea. But the other ladies also drank tea, why are they okay? Hongyu's eyes were red and swollen, and his voice could be heard to be choked and scared, is there something wrong with the teacup? When the emperor heard the words, he was instantly enlightened. He turned around and ordered, Chen Hai, this detail mentioned by Hongyu must not be ignored. Go and pass the order and tell Prince Qian and his wife, no, tell Chu Xuanyi directly and let him personally go to Prince Qian's mansion, preserve the teacup used by the eldest princess, and order the inner court to focus on inspecting that teacup. Yes, Chen Hai knew that the situation was serious and immediately agreed, I'll go right now. Your Majesty, the deputy commander of the Imperial Army came in and reported, Master Pen, the minister of Dali Temple, has arrived. I understand. The emperor looked at Qing Huang, what do you want to say to Master Pen? My father asked him to go and investigate without any hesitation. Qing Huang was silent for a moment, and her tone suddenly became cold. The few noble princesses who went to Suan Wang's mansion to enjoy the flowers today are now staying in the palace. After what happened, the imperial brother immediately decided to have the cook and maid in charge of tea and fruits controlled, and planned to interrogate them one by one. Chen believed that the two emperor brothers should be able to think of any doubts. If Master Pen has anything to ask, just go there. Just ask the second emperor brother and the second emperor's sister-in-law. The emperor nodded. The invitation was sent by Princess Xian. Qing Huang and other noble ladies were invited by Princess Xian to go to the palace to enjoy the flowers. The refreshments and fruits were also prepared by the servants of Prince Xian's palace. Qing Huang was poisoned in Prince Xian's mansion, so he should naturally give an explanation to Prince Xian and his wife. If they want to prove their innocence, they must find out the truth as soon as possible. The emperor glanced at the 5 people surrounding the bed again, and frowned. You wanted to say something, but when you moved your mouth, you found that there was nothing to say. In the end, he just said to Qing Huang, you have a good rest, I will have someone find out the truth and give you an explanation. Qing Huang said, thank you very much, father. The emperor turned and left. Naturally, people inside and outside the hall knelt down to see him off. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 216. The palace finally quieted down. The imperial doctors had all left. When the guards outside escorted the emperor away, Hong Yu slowly took out a handkerchief to wipe his eyes, sobbing twice, "Your Highness, I can't live without you." Chu Qinghuang looked at him expressionlessly. 4 pairs of eyes beside him fell on his face, and Fu Kang standing in the corner also looked at him coldly and calmly. "Are you addicted to acting?" Hong Yu had a sincere expression on his face. "Your Highness, how is my true expression?" Chu Qinghuang said indifferently, "I should be able to make a living in the opera troupe." Hong Yu curled his lips. "With my looks, figure, and acting skills, it shouldn't be a problem to be a pillar of the stage." Fu Kang silently poured a cup of tea and brought it over. The rest of the people in the palace were his own people, and he didn't need to force himself to abide by his duties. Just seeing Chu Qinghuang's healthy face now pale and haggard, his chest was boiling with murderous aura, making him want to rush to the Xianwang mansion right now and cut Feng Wanyu into pieces. "Your Highness, was the poison given by the daughter of the Feng family?" Chu Ling Chuan took out a porcelain bottle from his sleeve, unplugged the bottle, and the inner hall was immediately filled with fragrance. Chu Ling Chuan poured a pill into his palm, pinched it with his fingers and sent it to Chu Qinghuang's mouth. "She is quite courageous." Chu Qinghuang took the pill and said indifferently, "She is not courageous, but she thinks she has done it perfectly." The venom extracted from the heartbreak grass is originally colorless and tasteless. People with extremely sensitive taste buds can taste a little bit of bitterness in it. However, after being mixed with tea, this slight bitterness is completely covered by the taste of tea, and it is difficult for ordinary people to detect it. In addition, there is no evidence. Xiang, who is responsible for the tea, has jumped into the well and committed suicide. Feng Wanyu naturally thought that others could not find out anything. If Chu Qinghuang's guess is correct, Xiang should be an orphan with no relatives alive, otherwise she would never dare to do such a thing. Jumping into the well to commit suicide is equivalent to admitting that she murdered the princess and the royal family, and this crime is enough to implicate her entire family. Chu Ling Chuan asked, "Your Highness, do we need to intervene in this matter?" "If he intervenes, it will definitely not be a small fight. At least the Ziki imperial city will be shaken." "No need," Chu Qinghuang said in a light tone, "let Prince Qian and his wife investigate it themselves. It's best to make them so busy that they are exhausted and dizzy, and don't bother me in the future." Shen Zongjin frowned slightly. "Your Highness, don't you take this opportunity to drag Prince Qian's mansion into the water." "It's not time yet." Chu Qinghuang leaned against the head of the bed, his voice indifferent. "Although Princess Qian is not a likable person, but for now, this couple has not done anything that makes me hate dash." "Your Highness, what you said is biased." Hong Yu curled his lips, quite dissatisfied. "Princess Qian, she presented a handsome man to His Highness in public. She originally wanted to perform a sword dance of a banished immortal, but unfortunately her skills were not good enough and she made a big fool of herself. Isn't this disgusting enough?" Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. "They like to make a fool of themselves. What does it have to do with me? I am not interested in paying attention to these things." The man didn't provoke her. After being pulled out of the water, he left on his own without saying a word. As for whether he would be punished later, probably not, because the couple of Prince Qian were too busy investigating the poisoning to pursue a person who failed in the performance. Hong Yu choked and couldn't help but explain, "But it is true that Princess Qian wanted to present a handsome man to His Highness, and she is not happy." "You are not happy," Chu Qinghuang said lightly. "Don't you get along well with the little princess of Prince Rong's mansion?" "The little princess of Prince Rong's mansion?" 4 pairs of eyes looked over at the same time, with the excitement of an obedient book. "Is Xiao Yu are going to have an affair?" Qi Ling frowned. "Don't forget that you are His Highness's servant. If you dare to flirt with other women outside and disobey your husband's rules, Even if His Highness does not punish you, we, as her brothers, will set some rules for you. Hong Yu's face was full of disdain. First, I have no interest in that little girl at all. She is so young and devoted to His Highness. How could she be interested in other women? Everyone sneered. Second, don't show off your brother's power in front of me. I'm not afraid of you, Hong Yu snorted coldly. Do you really think that this young master is made of paper? Qi Ling stretched out his hand to pinch his face. Not paper? Then what is Xiao Yu made of? Don't touch me, Hong Yu slapped his presumptuous hand away. This young master is the reincarnation of a spirit boy. Why don't you kneel down and worship me? The sneers of the crowd became more and more obvious. The originally oppressive atmosphere was quickly wiped away by the words of several people, and the atmosphere in the palace turned into a relaxed and joyful atmosphere. Fu Kang stood aside and watched Chu Qinghuang's complexion improve after taking the medicine. For the first time, he felt that these guys were not so annoying after all. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 217. The poisoning of the eldest princess shocked the entire imperial city. It was even more shocking than the fact that King Jing killed his own princess, and it attracted great attention. Of course, these concerns are not entirely concerned, but more of expectations and regrets. Some people hope that after this incident, Chu Qinghuang can restrain his behavior a little and stop offending so many people. Otherwise, he will not be so lucky next time, and he may really die at some point, and it will be difficult for the gods to save him. Some people regretted that such a poison as heartbroken grass could not kill Chu Qinghuang, and allowed this scourge to continue to do evil, making the civil and military people in the court panic. They really wanted to hear the good news that she was poisoned and died immediately. When the time comes, it turned out to be clapping and cheering, and everyone was celebrating. However, the mood of the civil and military officials in the court did not represent the mood of the Queen and Prince Xian and his wife. At least at this time, they had no hope or even fear that something would happen to Chu Qinghuang. What did you say? The Queen's face changed in shock when she heard the palace servants report. The eldest princess was poisoned in Prince Xian's mansion. My lady, please don't be anxious, Aunt Gu quickly reassured her. Her Royal Highness the eldest princess is fine, but we haven't found out who poisoned her yet. King Xian and princess will definitely not attack the eldest princess, but we invited them today. It's hard to guarantee that the others don't have ulterior motives. The Queen gritted her teeth. These little bitches just want to frame my son. The more this time comes, the more composure the Empress must have, Nanny Gu said. The Emperor is a wise emperor, and he must have guessed that His Highness Prince Xian would never poison the eldest princess at this juncture, let alone kill the eldest princess. The princess is not good for us. Even if it is good, we can't do anything in Prince Xian's mansion. Isn't this something obvious? The Queen was anxious. The Emperor is back. Just got back. Changing clothes, I have to go see the Emperor. The Queen was so anxious that she couldn't sit still and wanted to know the current situation. If I don't ask clearly, I will always feel uneasy. Yes. The Queen changed her clothes and arrived at Yuqian Palace in a phoenix chariot. After the palace official informed her, she walked steadily into the palace and saluted respectfully. See your majesty. The emperor glanced at her and said calmly, the Queen is flat. Your majesty, I heard that Xiao Qi was poisoned, and I couldn't wait to come over and ask what happened. Why was she poisoned when she was fine? The Queen looked worried, and her face was pale and frightened. How is Xiaoqi's condition? Is there anything serious? Has the imperial doctor been sent to see her? When I heard the news, I was so panicked that I lost my mind. I have already gone to see it myself. The emperor interrupted her. His tone was not gentle, and even contained a bit of anger. Qinghuang is not in danger of his life, but his body will inevitably be damaged. He needs to rest for a few days. Moon. The Queen suppressed her panic and calmed down. What is going on? Who is so bold and seeking death that he dares to poison Xiaoqi? I have asked the imperial guards to assist Dali Temple in finding out the truth. No matter who it is, as long as it is found out, I will never let it go, the emperor said coldly. Before the real culprit is found, Prince Qian's mansion will be banned first. Anyone in the palace will be banned, no one can escape suspicion. The queen's heart sank and she was silent for a moment, but she calmed down and nodded slowly. The emperor is right. Before the real murderer is found, everyone in Prince Qian's palace, including the noble ladies who went to attend the flower viewing party today, everyone is suspected. No one can be let go easily. Seeing that she still understood the overall situation, the emperor's face softened slightly. Qing Huang has offended many people during this period. Some people hold grudges and some are afraid. People who hate her want her to die, and people with evil intentions naturally also want her to die, but this matter should not be difficult to investigate. People who do bad things will always leave some clues. As long as you want to check, there is nothing that cannot be found. Now we just have to wait for the Dali Temple minister and Chu Xuanyi to report the results of the investigation. I want to see who is this reckless person who wants to chase Chu Ho to be interrogated and executed, the emperor said more and more. Angry, his tone was full of murderous aura. If you dare to attack Qing Huang, I will never give you mercy. The queen said nothing, but her mood was not good. She knew that those little bitches would never let her live a peaceful life so easily, especially the two grasshoppers after Chu, who would not make her feel comfortable even if they didn't feel comfortable. Something happened to Chu Qing Huang in Prince Qian's mansion. Even if Prince Qian and his wife were found to be unjust, the emperor would definitely be dissatisfied. Damn it! Chen Hai, the emperor stared at the queen's leaving figure with a heavy gaze. Princess Qian took the initiative to invite Qing Huang to enjoy the flowers. Do you think he wants to win over Qing Huang, or does he want to deal with Qing Huang? This. Chen Hai lowered his head and said in fear, I don't dare to make random guesses. The emperor smiled coldly. The queen is smart, but sometimes being too smart is not necessarily a good thing. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 218. There was an atmosphere of depression and murderous atmosphere in Prince Qian's palace. Axiang, who committed suicide by throwing herself into a well, has been fished out. She is lying on the bluestone next to the well in the backyard. Apart from her complexion being pale and swollen, there is no other abnormality. Her clothes are clean and tidy, and her neck is not strangled. After preliminary inspection, no obvious scars were found on the skin under the clothes. My lord, she probably drowned by herself, or was accidentally pushed from behind after an examination, he concluded. There are no scars of abuse on her body, and there are no signs of poisoning. Master Pen of Dali Temple nodded slowly, stared at Axiang's body for a long time, then turned to look at Chu Xuanyi. What do you think, Commander? Chu Xuanyi's eyebrows were deep and he stared at Axiang's swollen face. How is Axiang's relationship with others on weekdays? Sir, Axiang has a good appearance and a good personality. She gets along well with the other maids. There were several maids from the palace standing on both sides of the well. They were all called for questioning. The one who spoke was Hylan, the eldest maid of the palace. I've never heard of her having a grudge against anyone before. She has never had any grudges with anyone and has a good personality. Then why did she poison the eldest princess? Hylan shook her head uneasily. My servant really can't figure it out. Does she still have family? No, Hylan said. Axiang is an orphan. She has been sold into the palace for 13 years. She entered the palace at the age of 7 and has been there until now. Chu Xuanyi pondered. A maid who was sold into the palace at the age of 7 openly poisoned the eldest princess? Even if she has no family to involve herself with, she doesn't want to live anymore? Even if you don't want to live, you can still use other methods. The act of poisoning the eldest princess feels unreasonable no matter how you think about it. Has she ever met the eldest princess before? Hylan thought for a while and shook her head. I probably haven't seen it before. Axiong is relatively introverted. She only serves in the inner courtyard and rarely goes out. Her Royal Highness the Princess rarely comes to Prince Xian's mansion in the past, so it won't be. Not to what? Although she didn't finish speaking, the meaning behind her words was obvious. Her Royal Highness the Princess has a bad temper, and she may have inadvertently punished these servants, which made them resentful. It is treason for a servant to hold grudges against his master, so Hylan did not dare to finish her sentence. But obviously, this possibility does not exist in Prince Xian's mansion. Not to mention whether Chu Qinghuang would embarrass a slave in the past. With her temper, there were very few opportunities to set foot in Prince Xian's palace. If a servant really did not hesitate to offend her, would he still be alive to this day? I'm afraid that if a whip is struck, he will die on the spot. Therefore, the possibility of poisoning due to a grudge can be ruled out. So Axiong was being taken advantage of? Exploited by whom? She has no family, and threats and inducements should not work on her. Why would she take risks for this? Mrs. Hylan just said that she has a beautiful appearance. Mr. Pan said thoughtfully. According to her age, she is 20 this year. Hylan nodded. Is there any promise of marriage? The status of a maid is low, and her marriage is in the hands of her master, especially one who has been sold for life. She will be a member of the palace for the rest of her life, and only the master of the palace can control her fate. Hylan shook her head. I have never been betrothed. She is already 20, why didn't she tell her about the marriage? Mr. Pan was puzzled. Is it because the princess didn't tell her, or because she didn't want to tell her? Hylan's face changed slightly. Yes, it's because she doesn't want to. Why don't you want to? Hylan shook her head. I don't know. Master Pan turned to look at Chu Xuanyi, and the two exchanged a tacit look. Hylan is lying. This courtyard is where the palace maids and cooks live. It is much simpler than the inner courtyard where the master lives. In order to investigate the case, he ordered people to guard the outside, leaving only a few maids. Generally, if there is a secret in a noble family, not only the master himself knows it, but also the personal maids who are closest to the master will also know some hidden secrets. The master will definitely not be able to tell the truth from his mouth, so he can only tell it from the mouths of these first-class maids. Speak up. In order to avoid being disturbed along the way, he asked Chu Xuanyi to help and not allow any irrelevant people to come near, not even Prince Xian and his wife. Only by completely isolating those possible noisy sounds, intimidating eyes, and verbal threats can the case be investigated more smoothly. Please help each of you choose a room and stay there. Mr. Pan looked at the first-class maids in front of him and pointed to the side room opposite. You are not allowed to talk. After entering the room, close the door. I will go in one by one to question you. No one is allowed to open that door except myself. Several maids looked at each other in confusion after hearing this, and seemed a little uneasy. I am carrying out the Emperor's edict. Anyone who disobeys the order is disobedient, Mr. Pan said coldly. Besides, I am only asking you some questions and will not torture you or do any other harm your actions. As he said that, he added another assurance, as long as you have nothing to do with this case, I will ensure that you are safe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 219. Chu Xuanyi is not yet married and does not understand the woman's thoughts, but this does not prevent him from being able to judge whether a person is lying. What Jilan said just now was obviously concealed. Master Pan took people to ask questions, But Chu Xuanyi stayed by the well, silently looking at the lifeless Axiong, who was beautiful, introverted, and had not yet been betrothed to a husband at the age of 20. The marriage of the maids is in the hands of the head mistress. Generally, when the maids reach the right age, most of them will be betrothed to the house guards of the right age. Those who are outstanding and especially favored by the master may also have the opportunity to marry into the families of some lower-ranking officials. Of course, if you don't like your master, it's not unusual for you to have no one in your 20s. It's just that Princess Xian has always had a good reputation. She was known as a dignified and talented woman before she came out of the cabinet. After marrying Prince Xian, she acted justly, was virtuous and low-key, humble and virtuous. "Sir," a guard came over in a hurry, holding a medical item in his hand. This was found from the bedboard in Axiong's room. Chu Xuanyi took a closer look and frowned instantly. They are actually a pair of small baby shoes. He took the shoes and looked at them for a while. Thinking of what Lan had just said about her good looks and being unmarried in her 20s, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed through his mind. "Let Master Pen come out." "Yes." Master Pen was questioning Lan when he heard someone knocking on the door outside. "Sir, we have a clue." "Got a clue?" Master Pen was shocked, quickly turned around and walked out, closed the door, and then asked, "What clue?" Master Pen Chu Xuanyi said, "Here." Master Pen came over and Chu Xuanyi handed him the baby shoes. Master Pen had been investigating crimes in Dali Temple for many years. When he saw this pair of baby shoes, he immediately noticed the key point. Prince Xian and the princess have been married for more than a year and have not yet given birth to an heir. Why are there baby shoes in the palace? Chu Xuanyi said, "This was found under Axiong's bed." Master Pen's expression became serious. "I will ask again. With this pair of baby shoes, the next situation I want to ask will be much smoother." Threats and inducements are used together, and after Mr. Pen repeatedly promised that he would never reveal what he heard today to King Xian and his wife, Lan finally hesitated. "Dis said, Axiong was once pregnant with the prince's child." After half a day of interrogation, they finally found a breakthrough. Master Pen and Chu Xuanyi both breathed a sigh of relief. "What about after having a baby?" Slipped off." "How did it slip?" "My servant doesn't know," Hylan said. "She must have been careless." "Axiong has met the eldest princess." "Never." "Then she has help." "This." Hylan's face changed slightly. "Who dares to help the eldest princess in poisoning her?" Master Pen asked, "Then how did she accurately poison the teacup of Her Royal Highness the Princess?" Lan hesitated for a moment. "The teacup used by the eldest princess is different from others. It is a white jade cup specially used in Prince Xian's palace to entertain distinguished guests." On this point, before tea was served, Mammy had warned anyone who dared to make a mistake that his legs would be broken. That's why Axiong found this opportunity. Chu Xuanyi was silent. Prince Xian and his wife are nobles, and there are very few people who can be regarded as distinguished guests. The eldest princess has a distinguished status and is now a celebrity in front of the emperor. Since Prince Xian and his wife want to entertain her, they will naturally pay special attention to the etiquette and hold her in her arms openly and covertly. But I didn't expect that the teacup that was supposed to show nobility almost became a deadly weapon. The people of Dali Temple are proficient in solving cases. If you want to ask a maid, they will naturally have their own methods. If there are hidden secrets in the case, you must reveal all the hidden secrets." After asking Hylan, Master Pen went to several other rooms to question several other maids individually. Everyone asked the same questions, and occasionally added one or two questions. So much of the day passed quickly. After confirming that there were no more clues, Master Pen took people into the palace to report the progress of the case to the emperor, while Chu Xuanyi went to the eldest princess's mansion to inform the results of the investigation. I avoided King Xian and the princess and interrogated several first-class maids of the palace alone. Mr. Pen presented the confession. This is the result of my investigation. Please take a look at it, Your Majesty. The emperor didn't look at it and just said calmly, have you confirmed who the murderer is? Not yet. Mr. Pen respectfully apologized. The maid Axiong who committed suicide by throwing herself into a well in Prince Xian's mansion was outstanding in appearance and was more eye-catching among the maids. She was favored by Prince Xian 8 years ago, and later accidentally became pregnant, but Princess Xian she was not allowed to keep the child. When the emperor heard this, he looked at him seriously. Princess Xian. Yes, Mr. Pen nodded. I interrogated all the maids separately. The final conclusion was that Princess Xian forcibly gave Axiong a miscarriage medicine. The reason was that the palace cannot have a bastard before the legitimate son is born, otherwise it will damage King Xian's reputation. The emperor's expression turned cold, but he didn't say anything. He only said, so you think Axiong held a grudge and deliberately poisoned the eldest princess to frame Princess Xian? This reason does make sense. After all, the results of the investigation showed that Axiong had no other relatives, and the child she was carrying was her only flesh and blood and concern. However, King Xian destroyed her innocence, and the princess could not tolerate her child. This result is indeed unacceptable to many women. He harbored a grudge, so he waited for an opportunity to retaliate, and finally committed suicide without any evidence, leaving King Xian and his wife speechless, as if everything was reasonable. The case can now be closed. But Lord Pen also said that he still couldn't identify the real murderer behind the scenes, which obviously meant that the mastermind was someone else. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 220. So you think the case can be closed? Chu Qing Huang leaned on the bedside, flipping through the files brought by Chu Xuanyi in his hand, and spoke in a calm tone. Chu Xuanyi stood outside the partition and said with a lowered eyebrow, it seems reasonable, but both the minister and Mr. Pan think that the case cannot be closed yet. Why? Chu Xuanyi was silent for a moment. Axiong is just a little maid. Where the poison in her hands came from is still a mystery. Didn't you interrogate the maid who lives with her? Yes, Chu Xuanyi said, but no one knows about this issue. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on the confession, and she said lightly, Princess Xian has always been known as a virtuous person, but she can't even tolerate a bastard. Although the greater responsibility for this incident lies with King Xian, it was precisely because of Princess Xian's bowl of abortion pills that Axiong held a grudge and was taken advantage of, which led to today's situation. Chu Qinghuang didn't care. After all, there was a wrongdoer and a debtor, and Prince Xian's own affairs had nothing to do with her. However, if this confession was presented to the imperial court, Princess Xian's reputation as a virtuous woman would be affected. Continue to investigate. Chu Qinghuang closed the file and said in a calm voice, Chu Xuanyi, I might as well tell you that the main messenger of the poisoning is among those noble ladies, but how to investigate and how to find evidence is up to you. Something about Master Pen. Chu Xuanyi was silent. Noble daughter? I was poisoned in Prince Xian's mansion, and Prince Xian and his wife are not involved. Chu Qinghuang turned her head and looked at Chu Xuanyi, who was standing in the outer hall. The two of them are also responsible for clearing the suspicion. Do you understand what I mean? Yes. Chu Xuanyi lowered his head and responded, I'm leaving. Chu Qinghuang said nothing and let him leave. Chu Lingchuan walked in with the decoction, passed by Chu Xuanyi, and walked into the inner hall in silence. Fukang took the decoction and began to serve Chu Qinghuang to drink the medicine. This Prince Chu is well aware of current affairs. Chu Lingchuan looked out the window. It is rare for the Ziki royal family to have such a young man. Chu Qinghuang took a sip of the medicine, glanced at him casually, and said calmly, you should act like an 18-year-old when you are 18. Don't be too mature, or you may not be able to find a wife. Chu Lingchuan smiled, Your Highness, how long does it take for the Crown Prince to join forces with Dali Temple to investigate the case to find out the truth? Feng Wanyu ordered the maid Axiong of Prince Xian's mansion to poison her, so she definitely didn't come in person to deal with it. Chu Qinghuang said, she is the legitimate daughter of the Feng family, and her identity is so eye-catching that as long as one person sees it, she will not be able to defend herself. Chu Lingchuan nodded, Your Highness is right, so she should have arranged for her most trusted person to find Axiong, and this can also convince Axiong, no matter who this person is, as long as he is found, the truth will be revealed. Can understand. As for how to investigate, this is the scope of responsibility of Prince Xian's mansion and Master Pan. In order to clear away the suspicion, King Xian probably didn't mind turning over the palace to find this person. Chu Qinghuang said nothing more, looked at the medicine bowl in Fu Kang's hand, and said calmly, this medicine is not bitter. Chu Lingchuan was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, although good medicine is bitter, I will try my best to choose some herbs that are not too bitter when preparing the medicine for His Highness. Chu Qinghuang hummed and looked at Fu Kang, was the medicine you drank before bitter? Fu Kang shook his head, it's okay. To a shadow guard, the bitterness of the decoction is nothing. Chu Lingchuan touched his nose and suddenly felt that he was a little redundant. His eyes fell on Fu Kang's face, and he secretly wondered what was so special about this shadow guard that could make His Royal Highness the Princess look upon him with such special regard. Apart from their different talents, aren't all the shadow guards in the world cut from the same mold? Most of the shadow guards are orphans. They have received rigorous training since childhood and experienced life and death dangers again and again. Those with good talents and strong will finally stand out. It is true that Fu Kang has great talent, but he is not the only one with great talent. Although it is true that he has outstanding appearance, he is not the only one with outstanding appearance. Chu Lingchuan touched his face. He felt that including himself, the 5 people in the backyard looked pretty good. Why didn't he see His Highness being so special to them? What are you still doing here? Chu Qinghuang glanced at him, are you finished with your business? Not yet. Chu Lingchuan suddenly came to his senses and bowed to leave. Your Highness, take a good rest. I will leave first. Alas, His Highness Hongluan Xing is moving, and there is nothing he can do if he refuses to accept it. Fu Kang, you don't need to pay attention to the affairs of Prince Xian's mansion. Chu Qinghuang said, I have my own concerns. Fu Kang was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly, yes. The master means that there is no need to go to kill people in the middle of the night, since the Feng family will not be able to survive for long anyway. I gave Chu Xuanyi a reminder that he can find clues just by checking Feng's house. Chu Qinghuang's voice was indifferent and deep, at most, the truth will be revealed early tomorrow morning. I want to see what Feng Xiang is. What will be the reaction of Chu Tianyan and King Zhenbei? Fu Kang put the bowl aside and looked up at Chu Qinghuang, if Feng Wanyu is found out, Master, are you going to ransack the house? My subordinates have prepared the evidence and manpower in advance. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment and said in a calm tone, I have just been poisoned and my vitality is severely damaged. I need to rest. I am afraid that my house will be searched, but I will not be strong enough. Fu Kang heard what he meant and said, then collect all the evidence and send it to Prince Xian later. Chu Qinghuang said, consider it a favor given to him by this palace. Yes.